Preview.
Welcome to the breakdown today. I'm Mark Reilly and I'm joined by Benjamin Geary, and we are here to talk about our upcoming game between Ireland and Japan in the rugby and all things related to the Ireland team selection and the Autumn Nations series. Ben, how are we keeping?
Not too bad, Mark. How are you getting on?
Good. It's exciting. I'm excited for this because I think we're in a period where no one really knows what to expect, to be honest. And I think it's going to be it's an exciting game because people, I think, may underestimate how good Japan are, especially after our last outing. So, yeah, what's your views on it? First and foremost, I'll just ask you this because this is the elephant in the room with everything regarding Ireland. Jonathan Sexton, do you think he's the man who should be there, and do you think we should be building around him, or what's your stance on it?
Oh, God, Mark, that's a pretty loaded question to throw at me straight away.
We have to start off strong.
Yeah, you're dead right though. It is the elephant in the room in many regards. Like when it comes to Johnny Sexton, I have a lot of mixed emotions and mixed feelings, to be honest. Like when you look at what he's done for Irish rugby, he's been an incredible servant since I think he made his debut. Was it late 2000s? I can't even think. He's just been there so long. He's a part of the furniture.
Yeah.
And without a doubt, even coming from a big Ron O'Gara fan, without a doubt, he is probably the best out half of the professional era. But like when you think that we're a little bit under 2 years away from next World Cup,
there we go.
He didn't blow me away in the last World Cup in 2019. That, to no fault of his own, but I think that it's a big job taking on to being the starting out half of what we would hope to be a World Cup contender. You know, at that age, and I hate to be cliche pointing out his age and pointing out, you know, how old he's going to be.
Cliches for a reason, though. They're probably true. So
exactly, yeah. But it worries me because there will come a day when Jonathan Sexton is no longer available for selection for Andy Farrell or whoever it may be, and he needs to be ready for that. You know, he can't be struggling for answers after Johnny goes. He needs to have it locked and ready to go. Whether it's Joey Carberry or whether it's Ben Healy or whether it's Harry Byrne, but you know, those guys need to be ready and they need to have the game time under their belt. But listen, it's still another year and a bit away. A lot can change in the time remaining. And obviously the World Cup is something you look to, but even thinking closer, like this weekend against Japan, I was frankly a little bit surprised to see Johnny starting against Japan, considering he named Craig Casey and Joey Carberry in July last time they played.
Yeah, it's like almost like in a respectful way. It feels like we're slightly regressing or going back to almost like a safety net, because to me it's like, are the other 10 stepping up is the question. Like Ben Healy to me has been absolutely phenomenal every time he's had a chance for Munster. He's played out of his skin. And Joe Carberry is patchy, and yes, that a lot of it is down to injuries, and that's, you know, that happens part and parcel of the game. But is it what's more worrying, the fact that we are going with Jonathan Sexton, or the fact that he is arguably still head and shoulders above everyone else, our best test 10?
I would say the latter. If I had to bet, I would say the latter. That the fact that nobody can fill the boots is a little bit worrying.
I agree.
Not that they can't fill the boots, like they probably could, but we just don't really know. But it is a big job. Like it's kind of a vocation in a sense where you're not looking for a guy just to fill in for a World Cup or just to kind of come in and you know, start in that position for the tournament, and then whatever happens after that is irrelevant. It's literally a if not 10-year commitment to this Irish jersey. You know, you're going to be starting 10 until you just can't anymore.
Yeah,
which I think is a bit much. I think it's a lot to sign up for any out half. You know, I'm not sure, is that sustainable? Is that position that's proposed by Andy Farrell, where he's like, okay, the guy who comes after Sexton is going to be there for the next 10 years, the next 12 years, or whatever it may be. I think that's a bit of an not interesting, but unsustainable.
Yeah. But that's, I think hit the nail on the head. I think that's pretty much. I think it's what a lot of people think. I mean, I think we all want, in an ideal world, we all want someone to come in, Joe, be mercurial and be on the front foot and be different and take what I find strange, actually, just to pop back to this, is I understand if Jack Carty's not getting a chance.
Oh yeah.
His last outing for Ireland didn't go too well. And actually, was it against Japan? Am I correct in saying that? I could be wrong. I think it could have been against Japan.
It was against Japan. I think you're right.
Yeah,
Actually,
a while ago, and he had a bit of a letdown, and he just wasn't at it. And I think that's kind of scared his, I suppose, the way he's viewed. It's scared his image in the Irish camp, and that's why he's not getting a chance. But if you look at him, and I know it's one game, but I think he's been brilliant all season. I think his performance against Carberry head-to-head in Connacht and Munster's last meeting, I think he was absolutely phenomenal. And I think if you're going with Sexton with age and experience, and I know Sexton is Jonathan Sexton, he's one of one, he's absolutely phenomenal.
Naturally.
However, why, what's your views on the Jack Carty situation? Do you think he should have got a chance, or do you think, look, we have to have Sexton in because he's the seasoned vet, and then we have to have youth behind that? Or do you think Carty should have got a spot? What do you think?
I again, my feelings have changed towards Jack Carty for a long time. In recent weeks, more so since the last World Cup. But not to say that Jack Carty isn't a great player, he is. I think he's the heart and soul of Connacht at the moment, and Connacht are a really, really exciting team to watch play. If I wasn't a Munster fan, I'd be a Connacht fan. I just love watching them play rugby. But I think the interesting thing about it, when the squad was announced and Andy Farrell didn't pick him, I kind of thought, you know what, that's fair enough. Yes, he's playing well, but the team isn't really winning games, and he's been given the chance before, and it was kind of shown that he wasn't really able for the step up to international level. And I don't mean to sound harsh in saying that, but it was kind of the harsh reality, really.
Well, exactly, yeah.
And it's tough to say, but if the international game wasn't something that he thrived in, maybe he should just focus on the club level. And then the team was announced, and then they played Ulster in the Aviva Stadium, and they mopped the floor with Ulster, which I really didn't see coming.
I don't think anybody saw that coming.
I still can't really get over it, to be honest. But then when you see his performance, and you're kind of like, he played very well, but he played a week too late. The squad is already announced. What can you do? But then Andy Farrell goes and calls up his teammate Mac Hansen, who is a purely form-based selection. And Andy Farrell said, a matter of days beforehand, selection isn't just about form. I'm paraphrasing and saying
that's so funny about this squad that has been selected. It's there's no black or white. It's such a gray area, because he says on one hand a lot of it's form, but that's only partially true, because if it was based on form, you cannot deny the fact that Jack Carty has earned a spot. However, we do understand his other side of it, who's been there, who's done it, who, when it really comes down to crunch time, like say Japan, and this isn't with no disrespect to Japan, they have come on leaps and bounds, and they're really good stylistically attacking. Actually, easy on the eye. They're very easy on the eye to watch as of late. Brilliant team, but we should be beating them. However, when it comes to New Zealand, that's when I do lean kind of towards agreeing with Andy Farrell that you need the guys who are going to step up in crunch time, because as we saw New Zealand Wales last week, New Zealand weren't even out of first gear necessarily, and it was tight. I think there was 12 points between the teams. I think it was at the 50-minute mark or maybe 55th minute mark, and just like that, within the space of, it was literally a space of 8 minutes, 2 tries, game over. New Zealand will happily put you away with ease. And I just think I can kind of understand. Well, I think I can kind of understand Farrell's thinking in that department, as to, we need kind of experience and people who aren't going to shy away when it gets down to the nitty gritty of the game. So it's odd. I suppose for the squad, who are you most excited to see?
Who am I most excited to see?
You look at close, rubbing your hands enthusiastically.
Yeah. Well, you see, it's funny for me, because I'm biased. There's lots of guys who aren't in the squad who I think should be.
Yeah.
There's lots of guys who, for instance, aren't playing against Japan on Saturday, but I think should be.
Like, just to pause you on that, who do you think should be in the squad? Just give me like one or two names that you thought were massive omissions that you're like, wow.
I think Jack O'Donoghue is probably the big one that sticks out to me.
Yeah.
For a guy who's so central to Munster's line out and their scrum to a degree, and just how the forwards run the game in a very forward-driven team.
Yeah,
I think leaving him out is just you want a really good reason to leave him out.
I don't think you're alone. I think that's a general consensus as well. I think there's a lot of people who would agree with that. I was watching Off the Ball this morning, and it was the exact same thing. Gordon Darcy was saying the same thing. He was just like, he was kind of almost shocked. He was just like, he couldn't believe it. But we have to trust this process.
I mean, if you can justify leaving him out, great. But I'm still struggling to see it, or I'm still struggling to think of one myself. Like even Keelan Doris, no disrespect to him, but like he hasn't played a lot of rugby recently. He's kind of been struggling with a couple of concussions on and off. He's not a back row that's 100%. He's not flying it at the moment. But I think Jack O'Donoghue is, so the fact that he's in the team and Jack O'Donoghue isn't, I'm not going to throw around any dirty words and say that he being Andy Farrell is being biased or whatever to Leinster, because I don't think that's the case. But
that's the quote we're going to go with now for this interview. Benjamin Geary, Farrell is being biased.
I mean, he could be, you know what, and maybe he's unapologetic about it, but I struggle to see it, but even looking more towards this weekend, I was really excited to see Simon Zebo. No sign.
That's where I wanted this to go.
Like,
it's so good to see him back, isn't it? It's just so exciting.
And I just struggle to see what his plans are. Like, I would have thought that Zebo would have been a big figure in the Japan game and the Argentina game. If he was kind of limited involvement when it came to the New Zealand game, fair enough. Whatever. I kind of assumed Farrell would go with a predictable team for that anyway. With guys who've been in the Irish setup for the past couple of years, but I was excited to see him, and there was no Simon Zebo on the team sheet, and I was very upset there half an hour ago when it came out.
Do you think he's done that because of, well, like he can easily put it down to, look, you've been away from the camp for however long, you're going to need to kind of work your way back in, or do you think it's simply he doesn't want to cause tension in the camp with Zebo simply jumping straight back into the starting team, and then everyone looking like, well, Andy, I've been here how long, and I've been working my tail off, and you're just going to throw this fella back in. So there's a lot of elements to it. So it is interesting. But maybe you never know. Maybe he's just taking it easy against Japan, giving him a rest, and then when the Kiwis roll in,
you never know. Absolutely, yeah. And colleague of ours earlier was saying that one of Zebo's last games in a green jersey was against New Zealand in Soldier Field in Chicago when they beat. It was like, maybe he's kind of a trump card that he's holding on to for another week, but it's unlikely though. It's not something I would see happening at this stage. The fact that he's not in the Japan team, or he's not in the team to face Japan.
I track it. Do you think his form has been outstanding for Munster since he's returned, or do you think? I think I'd see. What's your view on it? Because do you think he's been what people thought he would be essentially when he returned?
Well, like first 5 games, the URC, I don't think he played in all. He definitely didn't play in all 5. I don't think he played in 4. He might have played in 3. Sorry, now I don't have team sheets off the top of my head. I'll probably get in trouble for that. But he played a couple games, scored a few tries, but he looked like he was kind of getting cold out in the wing a little while. He kind of only seemed to score when the ball got its way to him. There was no real set pieces that he was at the middle of, or the game didn't really revolve around him, which is fine. But just for a guy with so much skill and so much talent, and him coming back to Munster was such a big deal, and for them to kind of, I don't expect them to put him at the middle of it, but
you don't think he's been utilised to the full extent of what he should be? Because I think there is a coaching problem with Munster at the moment. That's my opinion. I don't think they know their best team. I think there's too much chopping and changing. I find this Earls rotation just
funny.
dumbfounded. Yeah, I'm just kind of I'm really lost on it. I'm not seeing the picture of what they're trying to do or the pieces of the jigsaw they're trying to throw together. I don't get it. However, Munster have always been, I suppose, physical and play the game through the forwards and like but there's nothing going on in the backs. There's
uninspiring almost.
Yeah, it's and I just think Zebo has fallen. I suppose Johnny's fallen victim to that, and I just think it's maybe look. I don't know. Maybe his age is his age as well, and maybe he's just there to finish off a nice try every now and then. But I do think the Munster system isn't best suited to him at the moment.
I like the one thing I'll say about that is I feel like the start of the season has gone very differently for Johan van Graan. I mean, perfect example of it is RG Sneeman just playing 20 minutes and walking off with the same injury he spent over a year rehabilitating.
Yeah.
Like you've Chris Farrell out of the picture still with an abdominal injury. You've like the likes of Chris Henry now who's gone to Wasps on loan. Like he's a really exciting player that we just won't get to see now for another while. And he's getting plenty game time at Wasps. I think Dan Goggin is good, but he's not the kind of 13 that's fitting into the game plan, you know?
That's what I find funny. And this is not because I'd be slightly friendly with Dan, but it's not even necessarily. It's not even necessarily that. I do think Dan is a solid player, and I think he's brilliant at money. I think he brings a lot of what Munster actually don't have as well. I think he's immensely physical in the center field, which we need. But I do like again. It goes back when he was left out for Earls recently. And I'm trying to figure out like the pieces and what the situation is here, because do you think, and this is no slighting on Johan van Graan, like I think he's an amazing coach. Not for 2 seconds am I saying that he's not, but I just think this current squad that he has at the moment, I think he's kind of fidgeting around a bit and he's trying to figure out who can I trust on a weekly basis. I think that's what's going on at the moment.
Yeah. It's funny, like I think Dan Goggin played one game at 12 and I was really impressed with him at 12. I thought he was much better at 12 than he was at 13 because the position just suited him better. Like he's a rock in midfield. Very few players get past him. And when they do, it's very few and far between. But then again, 12 isn't really a jersey he can nail to the mast because Dale Enda is there, you know.
One of the best centres in the world.
Probably the best centre in the world, you know. And then when Chris Farrell comes back from injury, then he'll kind of just reel back in that 13 jersey, whether he's fit enough or not. He might take a few games to get back into the swing of things, but it's kind of a mind boggler from the Munster side of things. And I think we've just justified why Andy Farrell has picked so few Munster players because
we've answered our own question, really.
We've answered our own question, because
we've done the full loop.
Yeah, like does he know what he's getting? Not to say that Leinster are any a prize, you know. I think they had a very narrow win against Dragons. Not to be bringing up the one poor game they had, even though they still won it. I think, they should have won well there. But like, listen, it's interesting. Like, I think this weekend will tell a lot. I think the one name that stuck out to me most on the team sheet was James Lowe. If it was Joe Schmidt, I think. And if it was Joe Schmidt in charge for last year's Six Nations and James Lowe performed the way he did, like he wouldn't even get a look at an Irish jersey.
Completely agree.
I don't know.
I don't think he's there defensively. That's just me.
So.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, you know. I hope I'm really wrong. I hope he's great.
I hope I'm completely wrong, and I hope he strolled to a victory and impress against New Zealand, but we're talking what we feel, and I fully agree with you. I mean, he hasn't been at that level. Like for Leinster, he's been a monster.
Yeah.
But there is a difference and there is a step up. Like we mentioned previously there 20 minutes ago, Jack Carty. There is that it's just levels, and like I'm looking at the team here now. And it's just there's some interesting ones. I mean, I don't know, just Gibson Park as well. You're gonna have to mention him. Interesting. Like what's your views on that?
Jameson Gibson Park. I have a lot of time for him, to be honest. I think he moves the ball very well. I think he's a good snappy scrum half, much like Craig Casey as well. I think he can attack the space really well. You're not just looking at a passer, you're looking at a guy who can snipe and really exploit what bit of space is there. But at the same time, I would like to see Craig Casey. That's just me being biased. I'll be honest about it. But Jameson Gibson Park, he's great. He'll make no mistakes on Saturday. But it is what it is.
You've cursed him now. You know within the first 5 minutes he's going to do something absolutely awful now.
Yeah. Hopefully once he doesn't get injured, that's all that matters. Once he doesn't hurt himself. But it's a challenge you like, the kind of game that Japan play is they really,
at least.
I don't think there's a blade of grass on the pitch that they don't touch, It's really high paced. And I think he'll like that. He'll thrive in that kind of game,
And I suppose I'm gonna have to pick your brain on that, because it would be kind of, I suppose, rude and blindsided not to. Japan, what test do you see them bringing?
Like Japan.
Do you see it being the same as the last outing?
Good question.
Or have we learned from our mistakes?
I think from the differences between the two teams, the team that Farrell put out in July and the team he's putting out Saturday, are two very different teams. Naturally, they didn't have the Lions players, which is fair enough, in July. But even like looking at it now, it seems to be a lot more conservative. Like Bundy Aki and Gary Ringrose in the midfield, it just shows like anytime Bundy Aki is on the midfield, or is starting rather, it just shows that they're kind of worried about someone coming through the midfield, I think. Putting him there is he's just a bigger guy to kind of get around, I think Gary Ringrose was very good defensively in the last Six Nations.
I think he's underappreciated defensively.
Sorry?
I think he's underappreciated defensively. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. He's absolutely brick wall.
I think he's very good. He had a bit of a blunder, not a blunder, but he wasn't quite self against Scotland. I remember that was his one poor game, which was really out of the blue, to be honest. But listen, he'll be back to his old self Saturday.
Okay, and he's not exactly seasoned yet. He's been there for a while, but he's not. He's still learning, and I just think he's potentially a big player for us going forward now, to be honest.
I think so too, yeah. I think if he is fit, you kind of have to pick him, Obviously, Chris Farrell's great. There's lots of great 13s in the country at the moment, but Gary Ringrose kind of just has that bit of of everything, Yeah,
mercurial. He's versatile. He's that little bit of dynamism that you need just to to do something. If something's tied in the middle of the field, you have that belief that he might break out and just create this magic.
Exactly, yeah. And it would be really tough seeing him not in a team sheet when he's playing well. Listen, form is temporary, and no player graduates from playing bad games. But I think having him there is a big sign from Farrell. Having him and Aki in the center is a big sign from Farrell that they want to limit the Japanese. They don't really want them to play the kind of game they want them to play. And I think that's something Farrell got from Joe Schmidt. That some of the best games Joe Schmidt ever coached was because he stopped some of the best teams from doing what they wanted to do.
Exactly. He would negate their biggest asset. He would just completely tear it down.
But I think, like James Lowe we mentioned before, don't really get that. Interesting pick in the number 14 jersey for Andrew Conway. I just assumed it was going to be Jordan Larmour, to be honest. But I'm glad to see Conway there.
So am I, and I agree with it. I fully agree with it. Jordan Larmour is more talented. That's my opinion. I think he has more talent than Conway, but I think Conway will be a 7 to 8 out of a 10 every time you play him. And he's so consistent, and he does the job every single time, and you know where you stand with him. Whereas Larmour goes from a 5 or a 6, maybe a 4 or a 5 to a 9, but you don't know which one you're getting. And I think I just think Farrell wants a steady head now, just to start off the series, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think the international game is something that he isn't quite dominating in, like he got his first call up because he's playing so well for Leinster, and he's played well for Ireland, but like you said, he can be a bit patchy. I've never seen him play awful for Ireland. I've seen a lot of players play a lot worse, but I think when you think of the potential there, he's not quite reaching it.
Yeah.
Not quite reaching it yet, I must say. You know, he has reached it in the past and he will reach it again. But I'm delighted to see Andrew Conway there, to be honest.
So am I.
Yeah, I think he can really add a lot.
Just looking at it here again, so 4 Tyke Byrne, 5 James Ryan, 6 Caelan Norris, as you were mentioning previously, Josh van der Fleer and Jack Conan. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one to say the least. Like Ian Henderson now again, that's on the bench. That's, I don't know, I find that funny. Actually, another one, I wanted to bring up this name because I think we all know how good he has been and how just an incredible player, incredible man, actually, to be honest, a great leader. But Peter O'Mahony, do you think his time is like the curtains are closing a bit?
Curtains are closing. I think that's a bit of a harsh way to put it, but
yeah, I can be partial to a bit of a overstatement.
But like curtains closing, you know what, you just don't know. Like he's the kind of guy, where as soon as you think he's done, he just turns around and is the best. He's the best back row on the pitch, you know. But then again, like thinking back to the omission of Jack O'Donoghue, like, did he really earn his place in the Ireland squad this time around? No, but
he probably has from his body of work.
Yeah, exactly.
Over the years. Yeah.
Trying to say, like guys at that age, like they don't really win games with their athleticism as much. They win it with their IQ of the game, you know?
Absolutely. And dressing room for a New Zealand game, he'll be crucial.
Exactly. He sets a tempo, he sets a kind of he sets a vibe, even though I hate that word in a sporting sense, but he does set a vibe. Like
you sound like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer now. Like.
Yeah, you know, but
like
yeah, it is a big deal, and people are kind of like, oh, but sure, you know, if he doesn't play well or XYZ, but the dynamic within a squad like that is so vast, something that we'll probably never understand because we won't be playing for Ireland anytime soon. But and then with that in mind, keeping guys like that in the squad can make a big difference. But listen, he could play very well. He could, like I said, he could be the best back row on the pitch. In regards to who's starting with him now in the back row is Josh van der Fleer and Jack Conan, which is fair enough. I mean, no arguments there. Like,
no, not at all. That's why. Did you not notice when I was reading out the team? I just kind of vaguely ran through it and I was like, that's fine. That's fine. No problem.
Van der Fleer's phenomenal. Breakdown in particular, he's savage. Jack Conan's probably one of the best ball carriers. He's very Billy Vinopola in his prime when he carries the ball, you know.
He's been absolutely ridiculous. He's been ridiculous for the past 2-3. He's been absolutely he's been unplayable, really, to be honest. Been absolutely outstanding.
Essentially, like you're always going to get meters.
We're going to have to bring up the main man in what has been a turbulent year and a bit, Conor Murray.
Oh yeah.
So from Lions captain, Adam Jones gets injured, as most viewers will know. If you don't know, injury. Conor Murray, named captain. Gatland names his man. You are the leader. You take us forward. You're experienced. Let's do it. Then he's dropped. So to deal with such highs and lows within such a condensed period of time is kind of mind blowing. So I want to know how he's going to recover from that on the international stage. So what do you think?
I think it definitely affected him. Like I've been following, even just talking about Warren Gatland and his shenanigans. Like I've been following Warren Gatland's career since 2013, since the Lions tour in 2013 when he dropped Brian O'Driscoll, and I know, like, I mean, he probably made the right decision there and then. I still don't think he did, but a lot of people disagree with me. But I felt like these kind of.
Do you think he paid the price? Excuse the pun.
A little bit. I think like he makes these kind of drastic decisions, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But I feel like in recent years he's been kind of making a bit too many. And I think like to name Murray as the captain and then bring back the original captain, it's really it has no good outcome to me, you know.
I agree.
Particularly when it comes to the locker rooms and it comes to the dynamic within the squad, particularly with a squad that are together for such a short space of time, and for the other 3 and 2/3 of the year, like they're trying to kill each other. You know, they hate each other, they hate their guts, and then they come together for a month or two or whatever it is and play together. And for Warren Gatland to throw that kind of politics in on top of it isn't really the smartest thing, in my opinion. But yeah, I think Murray, I think he's a headstrong guy. But that would shake any player, you know. Brian O'Driscoll was definitely shook when it happened to him. So,
and he's one of probably the best centre ever. Yeah. So
he's probably
I think everyone. I mean, we're all humans at the end of the day. It doesn't matter your status. I mean, you work so hard for something, and then you get like to be named Lions captain that's
probably the biggest honor in the game, really.
100%, and that to be kind of snapped away from you in such a fashion. Whatever about if the okay, so I know there's no armband in rugby, but let's just talking in a figurative sense.
Metaphorically, yeah.
So you take the armband off someone, that's fine. Whatever, he was the initial captain. You give it back to him. Edelman Jones, monster, and a leader. No arguments. I think everyone would be like, fair enough. That's the way the dice rolls. However, to drop him, now we're bordering humiliation.
Yeah.
So I think it's on for me. It's going one or two ways. So it's going. Gatland might have seen something. He was like, Murray's starting to slow down a bit. He's getting a bit pedestrian. Too kick friendly. Maybe just out of his rhythm. Or Murray's coming back now with a vengeance, and he's going to return to one of the best nines in the world for him. So I think it hangs in the balance quite nicely for Farrell to try, I suppose, provoke a performance out of Murray, and to kind of hopefully Murray can dictate to Farrell, to every other nine in the world, that no, I'm still well in this game.
Yeah. Do you think he's named him on the bench this weekend with a name to start him on when the All Blacks come to town?
Personally, yeah.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be honest, I don't know. I think Andy Farrell, every time I think I have him figured out, he just goes and just does something else. So
he's probably has a poster of Gatland in his room or something.
Yeah, probably, yeah. I don't know. I think Murray, like, he was so good for a couple of years. I won't even give you a time now, because I think his game developed so well within the provincial level and then within the Irish level or the international level, and then like it was a conversation between him being the best nine in Ireland, and then the conversation turned into being the best nine in the world,
yeah.
And which is quite an organic progression. But now it's almost like he has these little episodes of being good, or like you said, sitting on the bench when he was captain a couple of weeks ago, which wouldn't exactly help his career and help his confidence. But I mean, like, it's interesting to see. I think he'll be, chomping at the bit this weekend to get a bit of game time. There's a lot of talk within the kind of rugby media at the moment that the Ireland team might be a bit undercooked since the summer series. That there's a lot of players in the team, or in the squad anyway, that haven't seen a lot of game time and whatnot. Murray, his name has been thrown around in reference to that, or in regards to that.
Yeah.
Which does worry me a little bit, but I think to expect him to get back to the form he did when he was, beating the All Blacks and whatnot, it's a bit lofty, It's a lot to put on his shoulders.
Yeah. I just think in his head it's not. So I think in his head, oh no, I still have a long way to go, and I have a lot more to give and offer. So, I think he's going to go. Go really hard for this series, and I just think that's the beautiful thing about series leading up to World Cups, because granted everyone wants to win series. I mean, it's international rugby. There's nobody pulls punches or takes it easy. Nobody wants to lie down. However, when it's coming up to World Cup, there's so many experiments going on. There's so many there's just so many plot lines and stories and like side plots that are just so intriguing. And I just think he's one of them, because if Gibson Park, like you said, does show up and does a good job, it doesn't matter what we say about Murray. Where do you go from there?
Like, I think Murray, I just googled it there. Like, Murray's 32, which isn't old. Peter Mahoney's the same age as him. Johnny Sexton's 36. I'll just have a look at now how old Gibson Park is.
Johnny Sexton's just watching highlights of Ronaldo all week and be like, I can do that.
Watching highlights of Tom Brady, man.
That's the drawn inspiration. And LeBron James, the three of them.
LeBron and the works. I'd say he's got the playlist down to a T at this stage.
Yeah.
Like Gibson Park is 29, which isn't like that's far from the end of his career.
There you go. That's why I brought up Jack Carty. I don't know, not to go back in it because we've covered it, but it's just there's a few. To me, there's a lack of consistency in the team. If that makes sense in terms of selection. It's just
it's tricky. I don't know. I this is again going back to like I think I have Andy Farrell figured out, and then he throws a curveball my way.
Yeah.
But even like looking at the team on Saturday, like there is a blend of young and old. Particularly with the majority of the experience being on the bench, which is kind of interesting. But I don't really know what the aim is in that. But at the same time, like you've got a big front row there, like Andrew Porter, Ron Kelleher, Tyke Furlong. Like that's probably going to be the starting front row going into the World Cup.
I think so. Yeah.
Like even looking back at the game against Japan in July, like Japan's pack was heavier. Japan had 899 kilos, while Ireland only had 873. Which is a big gap. Like, and the scrum was a point of interest for a lot of scrum specialists, because Ireland gave away a couple of penalties, and they were kind of driven off the ball a small bit, and instead of I don't know who was playing 8 that day. I'm not sure it was Gavin Coombs starting, but there was a few pick and go that were kind of foiled because the scrum wasn't as solid as it should have been, and whatever about that happened against the All Blacks, but to happen against the Japanese after losing to them in a World Cup is
a lot of
it's a lot to think about, Me now being a rugby head all my life, that's something that really sticks out to me in regards to how the trajectory the Japanese are on,
absolutely. Yeah.
Like you can be great, like you can have really fast guys who can score end-to-end tries, but like you need to have just
your own identity, your own game plan.
Yeah. And you need to have
they know what they're doing.
Which side?
They know what they're doing. I just think a lot of teams when they come up against, let's just say New Zealand or whoever, like South Africa, perfect example being Lions and Gatland selection against South Africa. We tried to take on South Africa at their own game, in my opinion. And it petered out. You're not going to it's not going to work, in my opinion. Whereas Japanese have never, ever looked at any team and deviated from plan A. Plan A is we put the ball in hand, we're expensive, we're exciting, and see if you can stop us.
Yeah.
You have to admire that.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the kind of game that I love to watch,
Absolutely.
I think Argentina are capable of doing that as well. I think they'll bring very similar challenges in 2 weeks' time. Like they're great at shifting up the point of attack. They offload, they keep the ball moving. But then when they do go to a breakdown and there is a tackle in a ruck, like their back row is just incredible. Like their work rate, like Paulo Matera, the likes of, I'm going to get his name wrong. Jack can cut this part out. But the Argentinian back row is just, it's second to none really. When it's on form and when it's working the way it's supposed to work, it's really something to marvel at and something to envy as well a little bit. No disrespects to Jack Conan now and the lads, but we will never say never, but it's unlikely that near future we play, I would say, majorly exciting rugby. I just don't see it happening from us anytime soon. But we play decent rugby. It's just never. But like, so we covered Sexton, we covered his I suppose his age, his injuries, and in the squad. So I suppose just to quickly go to this point is 3 games. So we have Japan, we have New Zealand, and like you just mentioned there, we have Argentina. Does he start all 3? Should he? No, I don't think he should. But will he? He could, Probably. Andy Farrell could pick him, maybe not to start every 3 games, but you could see three appearances from Johnny Sexton anyway. Should he do that? I don't know.
And keep in mind now, this isn't just like someone who fits a system stylistically and who is a leader. This is a lot like this man he's a very fragile man at the moment, and I mean that in the kindest way. But he's had some knocks, and it's telling. So if we're building towards him being in the World Cup, which I can't see it. Like I don't. How is that going to work? In my opinion, it's just not. So that kind of leaves the question to me: what is the plan going forward with him? And if in some strange way that is the plan to integrate him into the next squad, which I can't see. However, if it is, playing him all 3 games is not the way to do it.
No, I would agree with you absolutely. And I think at this stage of the World Cup cycle, because I think every time we get a World Cup, it just seems to be more and more important for the next one, if that makes any sense. Like, I think at this stage of the World Cup cycle, with just under 2 years left, in a series that doesn't really matter, like it's entertaining, but there's no trophies, there's no, it's not a championship, it's not a World Cup, it's nothing like that. It's
throwing your name into the hat, and it's pride, and it's wanting to just gain momentum and confidence.
Yeah, and it's to play teams that you haven't played or you otherwise wouldn't play until a World Cup. But I think in a situation like this, Andy Farrell can't be scared to lose games, or he can't be scared to make mistakes. Like if Ireland lost all 3 games, but we saw, which hopefully won't happen, but we saw players take on challenges that they otherwise wouldn't take on, or new players coming in, or leadership roles being given to players who've never had it before, wearing international jerseys. I think they're the kind of positives that Farrell should look at. He still doesn't answer my emails though. He doesn't answer my tweets. But, I'm I think, because even if you look at France, like France had a few kind of mediocre years there 2-3 years ago. Not bad, but forgettable.
No, very. Yeah.
And like when you think of the kind of talent they have now, that's so young but so confident on the international stage. Like, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelette. Like, even at the moment, and they're still doing it. Like even over the Six Nations, Louis Carbonell, I think he's probably 3rd-ish choice fly half, which is probably an oversimplification, but or oversimplification. Sorry, Jack, you can edit that out. But Louis Carbonell is just a guy who hasn't played well in a French jersey, but his talent at club level is just undeniable. Like he's probably one of the best under-20s players that I'd seen anyway in a long time.
Yeah.
So he will be very good for France, but he needs to play a couple of bad games. He needs to make a few mistakes.
Growing pains.
Exactly, growing pains.
Natural. I think France are exciting. France are kind of the next up and coming team. And in saying that though, Joe really shocked me, and I don't want to go into another kind of a long-winded segment because we have to cover obviously New Zealand, and then I just want to talk a little bit about Six Nations going forward. But I suppose this ties into it. Eddie Jones has done something that he's never really done. His squad selection was interesting now, because he's usually very set in his ways. He doesn't like to. He's and I would, well, I'm not going to quote accurately, but I'm going to say something similar to what he said. He's never picked based off form in the Premiership. He's never done.
He did say something. Something to that.
He doesn't believe that. He believes that the levels, again, like we were discussing, is just 2 different levels: international rugby and the Premiership, which is fair enough. Domestic rugby mightn't be at that level, but this selection he's made with the England team, he's leaning a lot towards younger guys, and kind of exciting players, and
which is form, really, isn't it?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So he's kind of against his philosophy slightly, which I don't like Eddie Jones as a I don't know him as a person, but he doesn't seem like the nicest of characters, but he's an amazing coach. And if he's willing to go against, let's say, his philosophy or things he's trusted in the past, because of where they finished last season, they were 5th, weren't they? I believe.
In Six Nations?
Yeah. Pretty sure. Was it 5th or
5th? Yeah. I think
it
might have been 4th.
Either or.
They lost to Scotland, They could have been 5th, actually.
That's appalling, and I think he's accepted where I put my ego aside. Well, it's hard to put his full ego aside. It wouldn't fit anywhere else but his head. But put 60% of his ego aside and go towards a team that, look, I'll put my faith in you, but let's see what we can do. Let's go through the gears. Like Marcus Smith. like someone like that, just someone different and someone who's going to get people off their seats and might bring something different to England instead of just the classic teams who are always selected by Eddie Jones. So, yeah, what's your view on that? Like, do you think basically after my whole ramble there, what I want to ask you is, are they a threat going forward in the Six Nations? And do you think Ireland should be leaning towards that philosophy themselves in looking at youth?
Like I always found similarities between like Joe Schmidt and Eddie Jones, because Eddie Jones was almost like a guy who, regardless of who they were playing, not regardless, but considering who they were playing, he'd have a jigsaw puzzle in front of him, but the pieces fit in different ways, in different combinations. And I feel like he sees his team that way as well. So he'll look at whoever they're playing. Like this weekend, they're playing Tonga. He sees that it's going to be a big physical game, but you know, tactically and fundamentally, they'll probably outsmart them. But I think in regards to Eddie Jones, like he can, like Joe Schmidt, he's very good at making sure other teams that they play against can't play the game they want. And on the flip side, the other side of that coin is that he'll wrestle the game into a way that his players will thrive into, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like even when you looked at them beat New Zealand in the World Cup, like New Zealand just couldn't get anything going. Like it was almost like you just took the batteries out of them. Like it was just redundant. And then slowly, by capitalizing on their mistakes and whatnot and holding on to the ball and, you know, taking your chances, kind of taking the chances when you get them, when they're good enough, just get points on the board and win. Just grind down the clock almost.
Yeah.
But I think Eddie Jones he picked a smart team, you know. Like I think it would have been foolish of him to bring up players that aren't necessarily the best in the Premiership, because the Premiership is really competitive. Like there's a lot of great players. You could probably pick 2 or 3 England teams out of the talent that's there.
100%, yeah.
But I think it's really good to see like Manu Tulagi back in the mix. He's starting 12. Owen Farrell starting 10, which is weird because I thought he'd give Marcus Smith the go. Marcus Smith,
I just think it's a step up, because that's what I was mentioning. Even the fact that Marcus Smith is finally in it, I just think is a step up. I don't think I don't see Eddie Jones to take away Farrell just yet.
No, I don't think so. He's captain, you know. You're not going to drop your captain.
No,
like Warren Gatlin might drop him, but Eddie Jones wouldn't. Like, yeah, it's a really physical team. It's just big, you know. Like Tom Curry playing 8, Courtney Laws playing 6, Sam Underhill playing 7. Like that back row is scary. Like that's terrifying. I would have thought the likes of Sam Simmons. I think he might be injured at the moment now. That's the
first name that came to my head.
Yeah, maybe I should have done better research. He could be injured, or he could be in the squad and just not selected. But like I feel like a run out against Tonga would have been something he would have really looked to Sam Simmons to facilitate, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to watch this England team, to be honest. It's
so
I've been a Manu Tulagi fan since I was a kid. I think he's just the best centre. He's so dominant. Like things that other players do well, he does another 100 times better. But I'm really excited to see him back now. Like Ben Young's another scrum half who's kind of getting up there, but fits the bill. Himself and Owen Farrell have played together for years. Even I think they played together under 19s, under 20s. Adam Radwan, who's on the wing, starting 14. Like again, just a kind of a form pick, like a guy who
absolutely
probably had. I think he's a cap already, but you know, very very scarce. Has never been a staple in the English team. But he'll be interesting to watch. But Johnny May as well, of course. But
Johnny May is phenomenal. He's just he's just reliable. So before we move away from Japan, prediction time, my friend.
Oh right, scores,
or just not even necessarily a score. Ireland by 5, Ireland by 10. What do you think?
I think like considering the last game,
Mm-hmm.
like what did they win by last year?
Was it 7 or was it 8?
Yeah, it was something like 32, 39.
39? Yeah, 31, 39. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. It'd be more the same. Like the fact that both teams got into the 30s in scoring is just phenomenal. Like,
yeah,
we'll talk about getting your money's worth for your ticket.
yeah.
But prediction wise, I'm gonna go Ireland by 7, I think. But I'd say it'll be kind of like
I think
32-39 kind of job, you know.
32-39. Okay.
It'll be a high scoring game, but Ireland win by a try, I think.
I'm actually gonna go the complete opposite because I think Farrell doesn't want a repeat of the last. I think he wants a tight defense.
Oh, yeah.
I think he wants to shut them out. I think he wants to make a statement that, look, if we score 15 points, if we put 18 on the board, or whatever it is, I don't really care. I just don't want you racking up 30 or 20 or 15 plus. I think he wants a shutout. Whether he achieves it or not is another story. But I'm actually gonna go. I'm gonna go Ireland by. I'm gonna go Ireland by 10 or 13.
Okay, yeah.
I'm confident. I am confident. I think they're gonna do. I think Ireland put on a display. Now this has come back in my face, knowing me now. By
I was about to say I was going to change my mind because like the team sheet just it strengthens your argument way more than it strengthens mine. Because
I'm just looking at it here, and I just think he's going to want to shut him out. I think he's going to go physical.
Like the fact that Johnny Sexton's there, he's going to be looking at the posts. You know, it's just going to be any penalty is going to be kickable. Any kickable penalty is going to be kicked. Bundy Aki and Gary Ringrose in the midfield. You know, Andrew Conway's very strong defensively. James Lowe hopefully will be very strong defensively. You know, he's going to limit their options.
The only question mark really I have defensively,
James Lowe. I hope I'm wrong, but
yeah, okay. So I'll go. Do you know what? I'll go Ireland by 10, and I'll go Ireland by 10. So that'll cover our podcast for this week. Myself, Mark Reilly, and Ben Geary here from Sport and Limerick with the breakdown. And hopefully Ireland can get it done with a positive performance, and we can look forward to New Zealand with a bit more confidence than we did today. So next week, join us again, folks. Thanks to anyone tuning in, whether you're watching or listening to us, really appreciate it. And next week we will have a review heading into New Zealand, where it'll be a much bigger test. But that's not downplaying the test that's ahead of us this weekend in Ireland, Japan at the Aviva. So until then, folks, thank you very much.